Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another Full Compass, Full Access webinar in our series where we bring you industry experts to talk about the subjects that you want to hear about. My name is Jim Ripp. I'm the Director of Education and Live Event Production here at Full Compass Systems, and we have a very interesting subject that we're going to take on today, tackling technology challenges for the educators in the world of technology today. And man, educators have a lot of hurdles to get through. So we're going to talk about that. First things first, let's talk some housekeeping. We have a question and answer feature available to you. So feel free to use that at any time during the webinar. We encourage that because this is your chance to ask some questions about the subject, and we'll do our best to answer them. And also, this is being recorded, so if you have to duck out halfway through, or if you want to watch it again even, you can do that. So let's bring on our guest today. Today we have Laurie Potter. She is a national account representative at Full Compass Systems here. Welcome, Laurie.
Hi, Jim.
It is a blustery, cold, but beautiful, snowy day here in Madison, Wisconsin. How are things? Where are you coming from?
Well, I'm in the Twin Cities, Minnesota area, so
you get a lot colder than Madison does.
Yeah, it gets pretty cold. Today's actually probably in the 20s, and we got a little bit of snow, but there's a pretty intense wind out there today. So
yeah, it's snowing pretty hard here, and it's expected to last a few more hours. But so hopefully everybody has your coffee. You're nice and warm in your houses, and I know we're warm here, but it's cold outside. So we're going to talk about tackling these technology issues that educators face today. And by technology, we mean dealing with any of the audio, video, any of that that they may need or have to use in the school, correct? That's what we're going to talk about.
Correct.
All right, so why don't you give us a quick run through of what actually, let's hear about your back end. What's your, where do you come from? What's your kind of quick bio in the industry?
Sure. So I've been active in the arts, like a lot of people from a very young age. I do a lot of music writing. I have a home studio, do arranging and recording. But I also had a video production company for several years in the Twin Cities. So did a lot of filming and post-production and motion graphics, that sort of thing. So that's kind of where I sit in the artistic mix, I guess.
Got it. But and you've been answering questions that have been thrown at you from educators all over the United States.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
100%.
That's great we have you here today. So real quick, let's find out who our audience is. So we're going to send out a survey here. Absolutely fill this out. Let us know. We want to know what your role is within the industry, and fill that out. And while you guys are filling that out, Laurie, tell us about the state of technology in education today. What can you tell us about that?
Well, with the pandemic a couple of years ago, I think pretty much everybody is fitted with live streaming equipment for the classes. Now that the students are back into the classroom, there are some pretty cool products like those smart boards, interactive whiteboards. A lot of the teachers use even portable, like wireless systems so that they don't lose their voice when they have back-to-back classes. As far as like performing arts, whether you have a cafetorium, a gymatorium, or, a dedicated theater space, they're basically all using professional audio, video, and lighting equipment in those spaces. So there's a whole lot of tech going on in education these days.
It is, and I can't stress enough, this is a call out to anybody that's in the education industry, how important you are in the future of everybody. And it's very important that you have the proper technology to do the proper trainings and get them exposed early on to the technologies that are out there, because that's what they're going to have to use in the real world, right? So
exactly, 100%.
All right, so let's take a look at the poll results here, and we'll have Declan, our assistant, pop that up on the screen here. So we have some IT, we have performing arts technicians and facilities management with us today. So the majority of everybody's the performing arts technicians, auditorium manager, and so forth in that category. So that's who we're dealing with today, Laurie.
Okay, great.
So I talked about how important it is. What is kind of the growing role of technology? How is that evolving today within the education system?
Well, I think within the education system, it's just being implemented more and more. It's even to the point now where you had your STEM schools, the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and now they call it STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. So, all of this training is kind of, overlapping into the other, so that performing arts and regular classroom is, they're kind of getting a well-rounded education and, IT and robotics and also performance. So it's just a growing infinitely into the programs.
So you had mentioned the pandemic, and that was hopefully nothing ever like that happens again.
Well,
but
sure.
I have to say, on our end, just at Full Compass here, the landscape took a huge shift in everything. And in the educators, one of the huge waves that we saw, trends that we saw, was the fact that everybody needed to learn how to live stream. Everybody needed to know how to do that, how to do face-to-face meetings. Up until that point, it was only a select few that would do it. And web camera sales went crazy at that point.
For sure. Absolutely.
So that was a situation where we were forced to very quickly learn all of that. So, and we saw universities, K through 12, everybody reaching out to us, getting as many web cameras as they possibly could. Is there anything else that you saw that changed very quickly within the industry that created maybe more challenges?
Well, I think for education, it's just everything's so evolving, and a lot of it too is, going over a network system opposed to, an analog system, and there are challenges with that. So I think the technology just moves so fast that it's kind of hard to keep up with it. And, now you're learning, multiple competencies where you have to know IT and you have to know AV, and they're just kind of conjoining. So that's kind of one of the bigger challenges, especially in the performing arts area.
One of the trends we are also seeing here for everybody is, and definitely something to consider, is it used to be that institutions, schools, educators would rely on contractors and integrators. They're a very, very great resource, but they've started to bring those type of educated technology people within the school systems, so that they have somebody on staff that's fully Dante certified, that knows all of AV over IP, that can handle all of that technology. And that's another shift that we're seeing that's that's interesting, I guess, within the education system, that they're starting to bring those people in-house and actually have them on staff.
Yeah, and I see that a lot, not so much in the elementary level, although some of those schools do have, pretty robust, performance spaces. But as you get in the middle school, sometimes they have dedicated personnel, more so in the high school, but they still struggle a little bit in the elementary level just because they don't have that kind of support from, what I've learned from the people I talk with.
So let's learn more about about this from the people. We have another poll, but so let's throw that out. We only have 3 polls for you. So if you could fill this out, we want to know what the challenges that are here with us live. Let us know what those challenges are. So is it budget? Is it not knowing the right products? Limited time to research, justifying investment, which can be a big one, right?
Absolutely.
So as you're filling that out, Laurie, point out one of the ones that kind of, let's look at limited budgets first off.
Yeah, and I would say from the educators that I've spoken with, that is just like one of the major challenges. I think there are multiple ones, but that's the biggest one. You only have so many district dollars, and every school is kind of fighting for those dollars. And there are grants too, but again, it's the same thing. Everybody's trying to go after that money. Additionally, the purchase process can be a little complex and convoluted, where you have multiple people that are needing to approve what you're purchasing, and then you have to send it to procurement, and then there are times where I'll get a PO maybe 5 months after I did made a quote, and finally get a PO. So I know a lot of people get frustrated with that process, because it's just A, there's no money, and B, when you do have money, it takes a long time to get it through.
So if you are an educator and facing a limited budget, which I get it, there are a lot, I don't want to talk badly about the sports programs, but they tend to get a lot of the budgeted money pushed that way, right? The theater end of things, not so much, right? So you have to deal, and in those situations, sometimes you have more technology than you would in sports. So with a limited budget, Laurie, tell me about the different ways around that. Is it selection of product? Is it doing your research? How do you attack that?
Well, I think both of those come into play. Researching and picking the right product is a big thing. One thing, that I've encountered too, like even with my own video production company, let's say if I look at a product and I don't want to spend the money for the more expensive product, because I think, well, maybe I'm just going to take a chance on it, and then I get it, I'm disappointed, and then I have to rebuy it anyway. So it's really making, good choices, doing the research, understanding, if it's whatever you're purchasing is compatible with the system that you have, making sure that, whatever you purchase is kind of future-proof to a certain extent, so that you can expand on it in the future and not have to reinvent the wheel. So I know a lot of educators, sometimes they'll buy something and then they want to expand on it, the next year. And I look at it and I go, I'm sorry, you had to have the next level up in order to be able to expand on it. So if you make wise decisions, I think from the get-go, you're going to save money for sure, and just be able to keep building opposed to rebuying.
You brought up a very good point. Even though you have a limited budget, you need to look forward, right?
Exactly.
You need to look, what are the possibilities? What am I going to be doing next year? And not get something that's going to, eliminate you being able to do that next year.
Exactly.
Look forward as to what you are going to do. Not only what is your application currently, but in the future, what are you looking to do? And then just nudge it to that area to where you can extend the length of that technology working for you. So that is the number one, and let's end this poll here. I think everybody's got it all in. Number one, budget limitations. And behind that, we have limited time for research, and justifying investment is a big one as well. But there's check marks in every one of those that we pushed out there. So let's talk about, you talked about doing the research. What about the lack of knowledge and what to buy? How do what's a good trick or tip in that area?
Well, admittedly, there are a lot of products out there, and it can be a very, laborious task to kind of weed through. If you're not certain, there are partners out there, there are people with knowledge. So I would say reach out to, someone that has more knowledge in it. I did it all the time, even with my video production company. If I didn't know something, and maybe I pulled up and there were just too many options, I would try to figger that out and find somebody who had more knowledge,
like
and
you.
make sure. Yeah, exactly. Well, maybe today in that area, but when I first started out, it was a little more challenging. But yeah, don't feel like you have to go it alone. There are a lot of people out there with a lot of great knowledge, and reaching out to them and finding out, what are you using, what's working, what doesn't, that really helps narrow it down. Because if you just, pull things up on the internet, it can just be overwhelming. And
It can be, absolutely. We were talking web cameras, just a simple web camera. There's hundreds of them to choose from. Well, which ones do I do? And they throw you all these specs at you, 1080p. Okay, well, what is that? What is HD? What is Ultra HD? What is, just understanding all the terminology can be challenging. So absolutely, I agree. Don't hesitate to reach out. Ask questions is a very important one. And have a clear vision of what you want to accomplish when you talk to that person. This is what I want to do. And then let them tell you what will work and what won't work.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Even having them, the basic questions, who's going to use it? How are they going to use it? And where is it going to be used? Those are just some basic things too that you can relate to people that will help narrow things down. So, the more information you can give, specific to your scenario, people will be able to, recommend something that's going to be a good fit.
So limited time for research is educators are busy, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Except in the summer for some of them, but not for all of them. But with limited time, what would you suggest to our listeners?
Well, again,
Shortcuts.
I know my go-tos are videos. A lot of times they'll do a quick review of a product. Just reaching out to people that have more knowledge on it. I do use, YouTube quite a bit for review videos and you have to be a little discerning on who you watch, because not everybody's created equal in their delivery of information. But that really helped me a lot, because it would kind of give you a real world. They're using it in a real world scenario, and it would, kind of save me a lot of time from weeding through spec sheets and things like that. Right.
Knowing who the person within your institution, who is the guy that knows the most, right? Who's have a resource within your school, within your institution. Here at Full Compass, for our salespeople, they get hit with some very, very difficult questions. We have a whole team that I run we are the deep divers in all of the technology. We have guys in each one of the categories of video, lighting, and pro audio. So for our salespeople, they also have limited time for research. And when, for instance, somebody calls and asks you a very, very deep question that you may not know, you have a resource right here in-house as well. So it's important to know those people, know who gather those resources, whoever it may be. And that's why we're seeing that change to where they are bringing it in-house, right? They're hiring people that in-house have that high level of technology knowledge.
Exactly, exactly.
All right, here's a big one. In looking to buy new gear, whatever that may be, you have to justify that. You can as an educator, as a music teacher, as somebody running a theater, whatever that may be, you can see very clearly the benefit of it, but you have to justify that benefit. So what is the return on your investment? Give us some information on that.
Well, I think, in the performance area, again, most everybody is implementing professional audio video lighting equipment that is the exact same equipment that is going to be used in a professional theater or a professional setting. So they are actually getting real hands-on experience with the equipment that they would use if they were going to, take a position in performing arts, or even a company. A lot of these companies now have huge theater spaces. I worked for a large company years ago that had a 1,000 seat theater. So you have a lot of people that would be managing something like that. Also, too, when you look at the audio, like I said, a lot of things are over a network system, and so they're learning about IT. So I think to make the case, I would say all of the equipment that the student is working on is transferable to an actual real world position, once they're out of school.
A lot of these things is hard to measure, right? It's hard to measure what is that return. You feel that you're constantly having to prove yourself, and
Yeah, and unfortunately, there aren't really any solid metrics on it, which is why you kind of have to take a different approach and show the correlation between what system they're working on and how it will help them in later life in a position, opposed to, like, if you're in a classroom and maybe you're using smart boards and teachers are using videos to help them learn, you could see the grades go up, or on an online system, attendance is up because you have other people that can log in. In performing arts, it's a little more gray. So I would say making your case, saying that this equipment is actual professional equipment that people use on site at companies is probably the best way to go about it, because it'll show that exact correlation.
And some of the other ones that are kind of not very prevalent like that, saving time, right? Having the correct gear could save you a lot of time, and then that allows you then to focus on you don't want to be bogged down by something not working or stalling out, whatever that may be. So that's very important, I guess, is to draw those connections between what is the return on the investment. Saving time is a big one.
Yeah, exactly.
Keeping up with changing technology. We all know that everything changes so quickly in our industry. Every year something brand new is coming out. We are seeing things that haven't even hit the market at this point that are very important, and will make a difference in everything. What can you tell us about that, keeping up with the technology?
Well, again, it is difficult to keep up with technology, even in our industry, just because, we have vendors coming in. I mean, Jim, you have them coming in every 3 times a week, every single week, all year long. And it's like, hey, we have a new product, and hey, we have a new upgrade, and all of this. So it does become hard to keep up with it. Again, trying to do research and make sure, that you're getting something that can be, that's somewhat future-proof is good. So planning is very important. I think too, again, don't feel like you have to go it alone. Everybody's learning all at the same time, and we're trying to keep up. I know, I was at a summit for a university group last, I think, March, and It was interesting because they were really just kind of collaborating together, trying to help each other out. So whoever else you can reach out to help with that and find out maybe, what system are you using and, what are the capabilities? So it's just, keeping up on research and again, collaborating with people and don't feel like you have to go it alone, that you can, people can help with this.
Super important. It's like the phone a friend card,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
To get you out of those situations. That's a time saver.
Yep.
If there's something that's just too deep for you, God, make sure you get people around you that have that knowledge. That's very, very helpful. It's also one of the things within that keeping up with technology that creates a fear that your gear is going to go obsolete. Correct?
Yes.
So planning ahead, asking the questions specifically about that type of gear. If I get this piece of conferencing equipment, whoever that person you rely on, or if they call you, I'm sure you get that. What's
Yeah.
going to happen in a year from now? Do you see any trends that are happening? That's not an unlikely question to ask your resource.
Yeah, exactly. I do get those questions. And, when they pick a certain system, like maybe a wireless system, I can tell, if they want to expand on it, I'll ask, are you going to expand on it? Because some of them won't be able to support the amount of channels that they want to use. So, the more information you can relay, the better off it is, because that way, like I said, even for me, with all the trainings, you kind of know what's coming. And, once we have more information of what you want to do, we can, I can make a better suggestion. And so again, just don't feel like you have to go it alone. Nobody knows everything. It's impossible. You just can't in today's world. It just moves so fast. So like Jim had said, use every resource that you can. I mean, I still do it. I'm very active in video and filming and all that yet. And I still reach out to a lot of people to make sure that I'm making right choices.
So I think this might be a good time. We have the third and final poll, right? And we really appreciate everybody. I do see that there's a question. One question has come in. Let's take a look at that.
If it's a hard one, it's yours, Jim.
How important is, I'm just going to read it. I haven't read it all the way through. Hopefully it's good. How important is consistency in products that, quote, play well with each other to a district? An example, Sure Wireless that can continue to be built on and expanded. It seems there's no real plan for that kind of consistency in our district. Rather, it's more buy something that works now with little regard for what you said about the future.
I would say that's extremely important. That's a great question. And I think that's, another challenge that the schools have. Everybody's kind of in their own area. And so they buy something without consulting, the, other people within either the school or the district to find out what are we using. And let's say maybe you want to use a wireless system in one space that somebody has, and somebody has a different brand, but yours doesn't work right now. So you want to borrow one from another area, but they don't have the same system. That consistency is really important to make sure that everything is compatible. Because again, it comes back to budget. If you have everything that's working together, like I said, you could swap it out if you need be, or you can expand on it. So it's a very important, that you brought that up, and the schools do struggle with that. So
Are you seeing, Laurie, from all of the schools that you deal with, that there is sometimes they don't have a choice in the decision? Like who's ever working in the theater, they don't have a voice in that, and the district will decide what the gear is going to be, or
yeah, part of the issue is that when you get to that district level and maybe in procurement, So you have the performing arts technicians that know what product they might need, but then, when you go up to procurement, they're like, well, why are you buying this? You could buy this for much cheaper, and maybe they won't be able to push it through, or they'll go with something that's lesser because they don't understand some of the other efficiencies that the better product brings. And then that's where you get back to, oh, okay, now I have to rebuy it again because we want to expand on it next year, but we bought something that was lesser because of constraints.
So the poll has been launched again. The third and final poll has been launched. Okay. And it's which of the following tools would be most helpful to you when researching products? And examples, we've covered several. So there's videos we talked about. We did not talk about podcasts, listening podcasts specifically focused on that type of gear or technology that you're looking at, or comparison charts. The people are filling out the poll here, and it's which ones do they find the most helpful? And number one right now is comparison charts, side-by-side comparisons.
Okay.
What do you have to say about that? Is that you find that same?
Oh, absolutely. So what can be a little frustrating sometimes is maybe you're looking at something like a light, you have a light, but there's a series of them, and each one has a slightly different feature than the other. But when you pull up a comparison, when you pull up the data sheets, they don't compare apples to apples. They're not organized in the same way. Also, too, I think with competitors, comparison charts are great because you can kind of see, like a microphone, what's the dynamic range and, what's the SPL and all that. And you can kind of see those connected together to figure out which one you actually, want to pick. So I do some videos for my clients from time to time, and I know the comparison charts are big. People like that. And they've even emailed me. They're like, hey, we like the comparison charts because we get to see it side by side and, don't have to spend all this time going back and forth trying to figure out where they put it.
I agree. It's videos is number one for me, watching videos on the product, actually seeing, but those then comparison charts, that's right up there. Product videos was second, along with real world success stories, hearing from somebody else. For instance, I call you, and knowing what your experiences are very valuable to me because you've had real world experience in AV. So if I have questions about cameras or say, hey, Laurie, this is what I'm looking to do. What are your thoughts on that? That's a very valuable resource there.
Yeah. Well, real world experiences are just that. You can kind of give the good, the bad, and the ugly, because you've been through it. And that's what makes them so valuable. If you, sometimes if you just see a product promo, of course, everything is, sunshine and rainbows, of course, because they're promoting their product. But when you actually get to talk with somebody who's actually used the product, they certainly can give the highlights, but they can also, tell you about anything that may have not worked out or alert you to something that, potentially could be an obstacle if you purchase the product. So real world, I would say, is probably the best out of them all.
So you have any good stories that real world type of stories that you had in dealing with someone, maybe questions that came at you that were difficult for you to answer? Add a little color kind of your day to day when you get questions pushed towards you.
Yeah, I guess, I try to work very closely with everybody and ask a lot of questions. We sometimes, so I had a school one time that was an elementary school, and I asked a lot of questions, but the teacher thought she knew what she wanted. It was a live streaming system for performance, and they had to run, 150 feet of cable and this and that. And she ordered something and then she got it. She's like, oh, that wasn't the right thing. And I guess I blew it. And I'm like, don't worry about it. We'll get you something else. And so, once I was able to get more, she thought she knew what she wanted, but she didn't. And so we ended up, re-talking about it. And we ended up fitting her with a PTZ camera and a switcher, and we were able to, run the cable that where it needed to be and mount it on the wall, and it worked out really well. So, she kind of gave me some feedback where she's like, oh, thank you. I'm so glad now because this worked out. And she sent me a YouTube link to their kids concert and to show how that camera worked out. So, again, it's just, trial and error. I try to ask all the questions I can up front. Some people think they know what they want right away. And, if that's what it is, that's what it is. But, if it doesn't work out, I try to work with them, get them something that's going to fit.
Yeah, asking questions is very, very important.
Exactly.
And anytime on our tech team and I prepare people for this, when they send questions to us, so anytime you send a question to the tech team, we're probably going to come back at you with 4 or 5 more questions that we need answered to get it narrowed down. So asking the right questions is super important in finding the right gear and asking the right person. So when choosing a resource, we talked about lots of resources for people. When choosing that, what's important to keep in mind?
Well, I think it's, everybody learns differently. So you have to, pick what's going to be comfortable for you. As far as the comparison charts, those are just specifically specs that will, let you know the differences between 2 different products. I think the videos actually show you hands-on. So if you're looking to figure out how to work something, those are going to be the best. I watch podcasts sometimes if I want to know it. Let's say that there's an influencer that has a lot of videos that I'm interested in, but I want to know a little bit more about him or her. And if they're really valid in my world, I might watch a podcast to get a better idea of their personality and, what I think about them. So, it's just a matter of, each tool kind of has its place and kind of has its place within, how you're in the decision-making process too. So I think they're all valid tools. It's just a matter of, how you access, which one you access first, and then, again, what's best for your learning style.
What about trying to gear out like on a demo basis or renting possibly? Do you see a lot of that, the value in that?
As far as, I haven't had too many people rent gear, but I have sent out, numerous demos, and they love the demos. There is no doubt about that because it's real world. They get to try it out. I would say more so in lighting, I've encountered that because a lot of times you just don't know what you're going to get, and if you're going to buy 50 architectural lights, you don't really want to do all that and then not have it look the way that it should. So people do really like the demos, and I know I've done it for speakers too because they just want to hear what it sounds like. So
Yeah, lighting and speakers, audio, absolutely. It's the real world experience, hearing it, seeing it. Somebody talking about a speaker in a video doesn't help you much. I want to stand in front of that and hear it in the real world. So maybe looking for demos, looking for going to clubs and looking at other institutions. What are they doing? That's the real world stuff is very important in making your decisions to move forward. So we're getting very close to wrapping things up, and I encourage everybody out there to ask questions now. That was a very good question we had earlier on, so feel free to pop those in right now. So, Laurie, do you have any like not closing, but kind of a recap of everything, overarching advice that you could give to our educators out there in handling all of these hurdles that they have to jump over?
Sure. Well, again, I know there are challenges, with budget and time and all of that, and it's just a matter of really, you know, feeling like you don't have to do it alone, making sure that you're connecting with, a lot of different resources, whether it's, people that have knowledge, in your district that might be able to help you with decisions, or if it's videos, or if it's, whoever it may be, or another, partner, because that way it's just going to allow you to make better decisions. And everything just kind of comes back to those better decisions, like, how much money you spend and how valid that will be for, for the years to come, to make sure that you have something that's future proof. And I think just, you have to kind of roll with all these technology changes because they do happen fast. But just understand, I talk to people every day and everybody feels the same way. So don't feel alone. There are a lot of resources out there, to grab onto to help you out. And like I said, the better decisions you make, the better planning, it's just going to, go better for you overall.
Plan out as far as you can. That's
Yeah.
important. Valuable resources save you time. How you communicate those questions. Is email faster for you, or sometimes I find out nearly every day that in writing an email, I'll get halfway through the email and it's so complicated. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to pick up the phone and call, because sometimes that's the way to do it. That's the shorter path. So having those resources, valuable resources like you, that you can call, is super important.
Well, one thing too, I
Yes.
wanted to say, if any of you educators, the question before that we had as far as communication and buying something that's consistent, loop in other people, feel free, to loop in other people and try and make your case, because that's going to help you too, is getting people more informed about what you want to do and why you want to do it, and, making sure that things are consistent across the board. And, and if you need anybody to, validate that, again, reach out to a partner and, you can validate that so that it can allow you to get something that's going to be consistent.
So you brought up a good point, made me think here. The internal process of just getting that all started is different for every institution. Some of them they have one person that's going to do all the research and they have to report back. That person that does the research is not necessarily the person that makes all the decisions. I'm sure you've seen that quite often.
Yes, exactly. And that's kind of where that disconnect is between the technicians that, are researching the technology, and then you have procurement, which is more of project management, budget, all of that. So they don't really have a good understanding of maybe what's being purchased and why, and the benefit, comprehensively, why it's a better decision to go with something that's maybe a little more expensive or whatever it may be, to allow you to be able to, expand on it and not waste money down the line.
Are there any other questions out there? I'm not seeing. There is. We do have one. All right. We have one here. It seems like there's a number of theater arts folks here. What are some of the challenges they are facing specific to that area of education? So
For theater arts?
yes, everybody that in the theater, what are some of those specific challenges?
I think, again, budget is, I think, AV meets IT. I think that transition, working with the IT and AV, has been a challenge too, because it used to be just AV and they're kind of different worlds. So that's a challenge. Again, just, researching, not having enough time. A lot of times, we'll have a performing art tech that has multiple schools that they're trying to help. And so they run out of time, and there's, so many different, again, not enough time to research to figure out what kind of system to implement. So they're just juggling so many different things that they have to do that just doesn't give them enough time to really devote, to one particular area.
One of the challenges, and I'm sure, and this is an easy one to sell for if you're trying to sell on budget, is converting to LED lighting.
Yeah.
That's one that you can show the return on investment very, very easily in multiple ways, multiple levels with that for theaters. So don't hesitate to look into that. There's incandescent lighting has a certain look, absolutely, and LED has a certain look. But the value of adding LED and that flexibility that you have with all of the fixtures and all of the moving heads, whatever it may be you're trying to do in that theater, those could be an easy sell sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. Just like you said, for the electricity alone, and
Exactly.
and then the maintenance, you're not replacing all these bulbs, and it's a very different world for that. So
There's another tip that I've gotten from some industry experts regarding theaters, and this could apply to anybody that's installing lighting. Look at the IP65 rated lights. If they're getting the price of those are coming down, and the maintenance, you're going to hang it up in the ceiling, right? And it's going to sit up there for a long time. Even though it's indoor, you have it IP65 rated, they last longer, right? There's less cleaning that has to be done to them. So that little bit of extra money that in your investment can make it so there's far less time of you having to maintain those lights, change out fans, or clear the dust out of all of that's been hanging in the theater for so long. That type of thing. That's another good tip to look at. So Ed has an interesting question. It says, will Full Compass be getting more economic lines of equipment for low budget high school use, such as some of the moving head units that you find on the big A word, Amazon? So I will kind of speak for Full Compass here. We take a very, very close look at all of the gear that we carry, and we want to make sure that it's going to be professional quality to give you the best results. Yes, there are a lot of manufacturers that have very low budget. In the past, we have carried some, and they tend to fail so often that it's not worth it. It's a disservice for us to suggest that to institutions and houses of worship and so forth. So we have that in mind constantly, and we have several lines that do offer some lower budget. But when you're talking moving heads, lights, there's a lot of technology that's involved there that needs to be very precise. So you have anything to add to that? They can get very expensive. I mean, moving headlights, $5,000 easily on some.
Yeah, and I agree, completely. You get what you pay for, you really do. And if you're going that lower end, like you said, a lot of times they fail, and it's more frustration than it's worth. Totally understand the budget issue, but I think in the long run, I know I've had clients that have, purchased some lower end things, and sometimes they fail, and they're just like, you know what? I mean, what we sell we'll stand behind, but we do have some lower level, and they're putting them in a more professional setting where there's a lot of use, like maybe they're using a DJ light in a more of a professional way where they're running it, and because of budget, and it'll fail after a little bit because that's, it's just not designed for that. So again, you kind of get what you pay for. I, can completely, understand the budget thing. But yeah, it gets frustrating when things start to fail, and then it's just not worth it.
All right, so I think we're all out of the questions. I want to thank everybody for joining us today, and Laurie, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to talk about this.
Well, I will say thank you to everybody as well. Appreciate it very much.
So if you have any other further questions, we have an email address that you can ask your questions. It's full access at fullcompass.com. That's a tongue twister. Try and say that 3 times fast. So just email fullaccess at fullcompass.com. I have direct capability or direct access to that inbox, and I will feed it off to whomever needs to answer that question. If it's a question specific to Laurie, you can send it there as well, and I'll make sure Laurie gets it. But if it's a very deep vendor question, I can contact the vendor directly. So use that as a resource, one of your resources right there. If you have some very technical questions, feel free to send it that way as well. So, Laurie, any closing statements you have for everybody?
I would just say, embrace technology and have fun with it.
That's good. And find some good resources, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Whoever that may be, surround yourself with those people, and that will help things greatly for you in setting your budgets and achieving the goals that you need and getting the gear that you want for
100%.
that. Again, thanks everybody. We will see you next time on another Full Access, Full Compass webinar. Take care. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.